Welcome to Being the Genuine Athlete podcast, where we inspire those who aim for excellence in life and want to understand the how and what it takes to be a champion in life. My name is Jure Koschak. My purpose, dedication, and commitment is to activate your potential, that you understand the ego through your sport and life situations. So I share and give you the tools to be just this, the genuine athlete. Are you ready to tune in? Action. Hello, dear listeners and viewers of the Being the Genuine Athlete podcast. I have an amazing author here, books, page, things, amazing guy, Matt Aponte, Mr. Matt Aponte. Hello, thank you for being here.
Hello, Jure. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show and to talk more about some things and share some value with your audience.
Yes, we are here to bring the value to athletes and to non-athletes as well, who are ready to reprogram, rejuvenate themselves. So you have a very interesting thing written on your Instagram page account, like a frequency guy.
Yeah.
Please tell me a bit about yourself. Why frequency? What's with this NLP author-like things?
Yeah. So I've some people have coined me the frequency guy. There's a couple reasons for that. One is because everything is frequency. I'm a little bit of a science nerd, if you will, as well. So I really like quantum physics and particle theory, and at the subatomic level, everything is frequency and vibration. And this actually ties directly into our ability to reprogram our mind, to keep ourselves at a peak state on a daily basis. And so about 2 years ago, I started diving really deep into frequency. I launched another business called IsoSync Labs, where we focus on brainwave entrainment and positive frequencies to help also with reprogramming of subconscious mind. So combining, old essentially knowledge in the NLP and neuroscience industry and combining that with technology. So I've kind of coined the phrase, the frequency guy.
And another phrase, a psychonaut.
Yes.
What's that about?
Yeah. So a psychonaut is essentially someone who uses in different ways, exploring different stages of consciousness. Now, this can be done in a lot of different ways. I personally choose to use tones or isosync or isochronic tones to take my mind into a different altered state or enhance my meditation state. To put myself in a suggestive state to either reprogram myself, to have a lot more creative ideas, to really just explore this connected consciousness realm. And so that's really what the definition of a psychonaut is: someone who really just kind of dives into altered states of consciousness to really understand our physical and our energetic minds.
Cool. Okay. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Maury Zelkovich, brainwave entrainment as well, because I had a podcast with him as well about brainwave.
I don't think I am familiar.
Okay, I'll connect you guys because he's also amazing and he does a lot of things. He has a very personal story how he came out of it. So that's for another time. Let's touch now, because you're also an NLP practitioner, right?
Yes.
And NLP stands for Neurolinguistic Programming. Yes. And life is programmation. We are like beings of programs, and programs are done with infinite repetitions. Like you're a father, right?
No, I'm not a father.
Okay, but children, as parents or teachers, we tend to teach with repetition. So you tell your kid, say sorry or say thank you or be kind. We repeat so that it's programmed. But we have a lot of conditioned programs that are based from our wounds, for our traumas, from our things. So I see all of those programs. Let's dive directly into problems of athletes, because athletes and sport world triggers everything. In a stressful situation, on training and in a match, I had both triggers in training environment and in a match. I was triggered everywhere.
Wow.
And a lot of athletes, it's like we live, we can make a comparison with the streets, with the highway. So on a highway, you see 100 maniacs. Everybody is in their own world, but we are all driving the same car and using the same streets. So it's like, wow, sometimes, especially on a full moon day. So in sport, it's the same. All of the negative and conditioned programming is triggered. So please, I have a couple of, but I want to hear your input or your experience examples of athletes. What are they struggling with, so that we shine a light on that, so that they say, oh, I'm there. Yeah, I have that issue. Maybe if you need a hint, tell me, but I'm sure that you have a lot of examples of their negative programming.
Yeah. So I work a lot with personal trainers, and then also through them, athletes as well. So I kind of work from a top down approach. And one of the biggest or the most common challenges we face, which is not only common in athletes, but also over 70% of the American people, is imposter syndrome. And essentially what imposter syndrome is, in lay terms, just not feeling good enough, not feeling that you're ever good enough, feeling that who am I to be able to do this or be this, or am I really qualified to have this because I don't have XYZ behind me or whatnot. So constantly questioning your own abilities. And that is one of the biggest things that we help kind of people get out of the way.
And that's like the core fundamental negative thing that a lot of other things go out of, which are maybe what follows next. What's the top 2, top 3 syndrome?
Yeah. So, I actually had, I wasn't per se in the athletic world growing up, but I was the youngest of 4 boys. And we did play sports in school, and we played sports, together. And so for me, a lot of times sharing my example resonates with a lot of people. So, even though that my parents, while I was growing up, they were very supportive in everything that their children did, my older brothers always loved to pick on me because I was the youngest. So when we would either be playing in school or we would either be playing, at home, it seemed like nothing I did was good enough for my 2 oldest brothers. So they would either kind of like, oh, you can do better than that, or you're not that good, or you know what, you didn't run that fast, or that particular catch that you made, and I saw that in that game. There was always this power struggle. And so you think of it as like, hey, it's your traditional sibling rivalry, right? It's something that everybody goes through in one way or the other. But for me though, and for many people, when you're a child, or when you're young, from the time that you're born all the way up to 13, and then reinforced all the way through your teens till 18, our minds are very malleable and in a very suggestive state. And so whenever we hear these things, whether it's from our father, who's like, yeah, you did good, but you could have done better, or our mother, like, yeah, you did great, you could have done better. And then those things get programmed into our mind simply because of the state of consciousness our brains are in through those young times of the years. So we don't really develop a filtration system like we have now as adults, to where we can say, no, I am good, right? Like I am good, and we can't block that. So due to the lower alpha theta states of mind that we're in, those negative suggestions make it into as part of our programming. We don't realize it until we're older. In our 20s is essentially whenever I realized it, in that even though it was a situation that happened with my older brothers, when it came to business and building my businesses and going into entrepreneurialism, I never felt that I was good enough to succeed to a certain point. Now, consciously, and this is where the trick happens, because you may be listening to this and being like, no, but I do think I am good enough. Like, I know I'm good enough, and I've done this and I've done that, and I have been able to prove that I'm good enough. But the tricky thing is that the subconscious mind has this programming, essentially, this baseline programming, like I'd like to call it like software development, right? You have a baseline programming, and this is where self-sabotage happens, what I essentially call the split personality conflict. And so when we're conscious, we're like, no, I am good enough and I can do this. But then it always seems that somehow we don't end up doing the things that we need to do in order to get the results that we need to get. whether it's procrastination, whether it's, you know, self-sabotage, whether it's coming up with some kind of excuse. There can be a million different variables that can pop up. And that's our subconscious mind secretly coming up and overriding. And so with me, that's what was happening with my success, not feeling good enough and not really stepping into that authority, even though I have amassed many different achievements by the time I was 30 years old. And so it wasn't until I really dug deep and to find out where that, you know, not good enough programming came from was whenever I was able to just override it. And then my success from then on really just kind of took off. So we see that a lot with athletes, and it's really the same thing. And what's funny is that it can go one way or another. We've dealt with a young man where he was always told that he was good and the best, but his father was just like, you're good, you're the best, but you can do better. And so he had this mentality of like, he could never fall short. And so he wasn't able to live in this perfect world because, right, you know, you're up against other people, you have all these things that you have to do. And so whenever he would fall short, he would be so hard on himself that it would end up stumbling him back and impeding him from moving forward. So whether we've had the negative or the overly positive, there's a lot of negative programming essentially that just goes into our programming, and we self-sabotage.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned self-sabotage, procrastination. I have everything written, and I haven't mentioned it to you, these terms. So you've hit the nail on the head, because those are the core programs that then eventually are born from these non-conscious programming that parents and teachers and coaches, you know, imprint on us or on the young people. I was going through the same thing as a kid, as a child, playing table tennis. And actually, my mom told me while I was playing football, soccer, that is very good, for a year when I was 7, 8 years of age. And my mom said, you better stick to tennis, table tennis, because I was playing both of them for a month, a period, because you don't come as dirty from the table tennis training as you come from the soccer training. You come all muddy and green from the grass and stuff. So I choose table tennis, as I was good in it, but I could have done not much better in that sense, like performing, yes, but in the sense of understanding. So that's what I was always intrigued. And that's why I'm so inclined to give this light and to understanding to the athletes that they can cope, they can begin to understand. We'll dive into the solutions a bit later. Let's stay a bit more with the problems, because this is where a lot of people are intrigued, because they are all triggered, as you mentioned, this self-sabotage that's coming out of, it's like, when you have this core program, you're not good enough. Of course, you're going to self-sabotage because you need to confirm that first program, and that you stay in that vicious cycle, the loop, it's so called. So, and please confirm me if you agree on this as well. Stress, I see stress as a consequence of not working on yourself, on your lower self, not only working on your technique, whether it be in tennis, golf, swimming, whatever sport you are in, working on your inside, working on these core programs that you reprogram yourself, because back to 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, we didn't know what we didn't know. Now we know, we are wiser. So if you're not working, then stress is a consequence. Is that so?
Yes. Yeah. So what ends up happening is that we get stressed out about the things that we're not doing that we know we should be doing. And then what happens is it's essentially, you know, because the mind and the body is connected. And so whenever
because a lot of athletes don't think like that.
Yeah. We have the autonomous system. We have the essentially unconscious mind, which is essentially all of the nerve endings that go from our spine and our brain and connect our whole body. So our whole mind and body is connected, but we can, from working from our mind, we can affect our body, and also from our body, we can affect our mind. So through breathing programs or through breathing techniques, or even some type of calmness and stillness and meditation, we can affect our neurology and all of the neurotransmitters or the neuroinhibitors that are being created in our mind, and vice versa through just a simple example, because we touched on it, through brainwave entrainment and realigning the compartments in our brain through the frequency following response. We can do that. Now, what happens with the stress is that when we're in a stressed mind state, our brain, we have multiple different compartments of our brain. Everybody knows we have a right brain, left brain, that they become imbalanced, and because there's an overactivity of a lot of different brain waves, but the most common one is a higher state of beta brain waves, which is in the 50 or 60 range of high brainwave state. And that's also associated with the fight or flight system. And so what happens is that when we're stressing ourselves out, we're also shutting down different parts of our body. So whenever we're in a stress state, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit of stress or a lot of stress. And some people think, well, fight or flight, Matt, it's not like somebody's trying to kill me or I didn't get in an accident. You can actually go to work and have a run-in with your boss, and your boss, make you upset, or your coworker make you upset. And if you're stressed, your body is moving into that fight or flight state. And what happens now, especially unfortunately, since we've come out of a whole pandemic, people are living a lot more common in this stress state. So what happens is that it shuts down vital functions. We don't sleep as well. We're not as emotionally connected to our friends, our family, because it's not a time to be emotional. It's a time for fight or flight. We don't eat properly, and we don't take care of ourselves. We're essentially not thinking straight because we're in a stress state.
Survival. That survival mode, because
exactly.
we need to what's the word? Spare the energy in a way.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. And so it's this vicious loop and cycle, right? We know that we need to be doing what we're supposed to be doing, but then we're self-sabotaging unintentionally and being procrastinating. So we're not doing it, and that's causing stress. And then we may push ourselves to the very last minute, and then we're stressed getting it done, whatever that may be. And so that kind of increases this vicious cycle that kind of goes through.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining the stress and the impact that it has on many athletes, and consequently depression, and not to go further on, even worse conditions that come out, the mental health and everything. Evidently now, after 2020, all of this is triggered even more. As I like to emphasize every conversation that I have, I've been preparing for 2020 since 2010 when I first heard about it. As in numerology, 2 and 2 is the future, something new is coming, prepare. And I was like, prepare for what? Nobody said COVID or anything like that. Yeah. Prepare for the higher pressure, higher impact, so that you will have a higher threshold of confronting of what exists, the situation. So athletes and, of course, non-athletes as well, they were all thrown into this pit bull fight arena, or let's just say bull. I like pit bulls. To stay clear. So like a fight with lions, we all became gladiators. Social distancing, athletes, cut-off tournaments, you don't know why you're training, Olympics postponed, world championships postponed. It's a lot of these things, and children that were not high-class, high-profile athletes, they were taken away of their freedom. Instantly, of course. It's like it was a constant war condition that we lived in. So let's take just for a bit time more in the problem side regarding not allowing, because now I see that there is a time, a lot of people being triggered and pushed so much down. Athletes are beginning to understand it's time that I dig into myself. Why do I respond like that? Why do I have this stress, survival, attack, frustration response when it's nothing threatening, life-threatening against me? So now it's time that they begin to dig into themselves. Have you encountered a lot of coaches, parents, because parents also put this pressure? Have you encountered this common thread as well of not giving time to know yourself, not giving time to meditate, like being resistant, just pushing it under the rug? I need to train now. I will fight through it like this. Train physically, of course. Have you find the same thing?
Yes. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, what happens is that, and we're trained, through growing up, we're not told or really trained that we control our external reality by controlling our internal reality and our, internal state. And so we go at the world as a cause and effect when we're really approaching everything once the effect has already happened. And so, it's like a very famous quote that says, become the change you want to see in the world. I believe that was Gandhi or Buddha. And, and it's very true. And the reason being is because, and actually I want to step back a little bit. One thing that I've experienced as well is that some people use their athletic ability as an outlet for them to escape, or maybe it's their ticket to get out of wherever it is that they want to get out. Because if they can do good, if they can get a scholarship, they can get, to the school that they would want to, maybe their parents or their family isn't able to put them in that school. And so there's a lot of reasons why certain people go into athletics, aside from just like, hey, I'm good at basketball, baseball, football, soccer, whatever. And so there's a lot of additional stress that's put on that. And then, so like you were touching about, whenever that was taken away from you, 2020 with the COVID and the pandemic, that could, well, what am I going to do now? Is this going to be an option for me? And so there's a lot of stress that happens there. And so some people that, maybe go into, football or really any kind of sport where they find that once they play, they have this release. Usually, if they kind of think about it, and this is really hard to get, especially younger ones to do, if you think about it and you kind of dig, you find that you might be running from something and to putting your all into something else, because you might feel like you're either running from something, it's an escape from maybe your environment at home, or you have to prove somebody right or wrong or what have you. And, the great thing, one thing I've spent the last 2 years trying to really prove, and I'm still doing this, is that because a lot of people are like, well, you know what, they think personal development, and then they think, oh, well, now I got to go into my past and I got to write down all the bad things that happened to me, and I have to stick with a therapist and figure out what it was. And you really don't. And so one of the biggest things that I've been focusing on is creating a program where you can reprogram all of your negative beliefs. You can find out what they are and you can reprogram them without having to go back and spend any time there, without having to go back and, because unfortunately, spousal abuse or any kind of parental abuse or things like that, those are real things. And some people don't really want to go back and relive that, because a common saying that I hear a lot is like, well, that's my past and that's not where I'm heading. I'm heading that way. And so what I've been successfully been able to help, all of my clients and students is to be able to address those things with spending very little time back there. We don't really care what happened. We just kind of want to know what that bug or that code is in our subconscious programming, so we can address it, we can override it, and we can move forward and become the people that we want to be. And so, yes, that's one of the biggest hangups that I come is like, well, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to work on myself. But really what they're saying is like, I don't want to go into my past and I don't want to rehash all of that. And there's a way to do it without having to do that.
Yes, thank you. These objections are so invalid, and they are getting like, as we're living in 2021, it's practically really literally the new century that we're in, deep in already. This age, if you're familiar with astrology and things, it's Aquarius or something, it's the new dawn. Yeah. It's a big transition now that we're in. So these objections are, sorry for saying it like so blunt, it's lame. It's like you're saying, I'm hungry. Well, there's so much food, healthy food available. Even snacks are healthy. So you cannot be any more so oblivious and ignorant. So I like these objections. I just posted a post about objection. Oh, this is so in general, you didn't give me any specific. Okay, let's go down to specifics if you want, because I'm ready. So hit it on. So let's be specific with solutions. You mentioned this brainwave, the ISO-Sync lab. How does it, of course, the consequences, the outcome is higher confidence, higher threshold of stress. You're not as stressed out. You're not triggered at certain things that were triggering you before, way over. What are the other consequences that you bring in with all this reprogramming?
Yeah, so what I call it is living your limitless life. and being your limitless self. And you know what, there's a lot of talk about being in the flow, right? Everybody, you know, athletes especially know this. When they're in the flow, you know, you've played table tennis, and when you're just in that zone and you're just flowing, you're not even really seeing the ball. It's almost like your body and your arm is making the move before you even realize it. And so what I like to say is the state of flow I like to help people get in is the flow of life, the effortless flow of life. Now, nothing is completely effortless because we always have to put some kind of effort to move forward, but it's effortless. And so whenever you have, because we are of two minds, we have an automatic mind, which is our subconscious and unconscious system, and we're built that way to conserve energy. Anything that we can do, whether it's emotions, it's energy, it's thinking, whatever it is, if it can be automated, it's taken from the conscious mind and put into our unconscious system. Just like whenever you rode a bike, right? Nobody thinks about riding a bike now, but when they first started learning to ride a bike, there was a lot of energy and a lot of thought and action that had to be put into it. Same thing with tying your shoes. There's a million things we do now without even thinking about it. And so we're of two minds. We have a conscious mind that's thinking like, I want to be the best athlete. I want to do this. I want to train daily, or I want to, you know, work on myself to achieve these goals. And then we have a subconscious that, you know, could have old limiting beliefs like, you know, maybe you're not good enough, or you'll never achieve, you know, that level of pro athlete, or you won't never do these things. Why are you trying so hard? That's going to take a lot of hard work. We don't want to do that, right? Because the subconscious usually is depending, can be a little lazy, right? Hey, we're cool here in our place. You know, maybe you made, you know, AA, and that's good. Everybody's happy for you. And let's just kind of stay here. But to go pro, then that's a stretch for the subconscious. And that's when you begin to conflict. So to achieve a true state of flow, we get the subconscious reprogramming to match what your conscious goals are. And when that happens, you experience no friction, because everything that you do, you think it's easy for you to get up. It's easy for you to achieve the goals. It's easy for you to do the things, do the studying, do the work, whatever it has to do, or whatever you have to do to continue forth in your path. And so that's what I call an effortless state of flow. And whenever you've achieved that effortless state of flow by addressing your programming, your internal programming, then everything seems to just work out for you, and everything begins to be a little easier. And so that's you know, one of the solutions. And I help not only athletes, but you know, business owners, CEOs, high performance people that want to take it to that next level, but at one way or another they've hit that glass ceiling and they don't know why.
Great. And this is actually what we're living for. How to understand ourselves, how to grow, how to evolve on all areas, not just evolve as species on evolving with technology and food, but evolving on all levels. So I'm so grateful that you're a part of this as well, contribution. Please share a bit more on this. What happens when you are in balance, when both of your subconsciousness and consciousness, when both of your hemispheres of the brain, when everything is aligned, as in tune, as you already mentioned, the zone, what happens? What begins when you, it's like, just to have an example, to give you an example, and to the viewers, I had the zone when I just told myself, Yura, just play, just give me the ball, just move. That's like 3 sentences, but I used each sentence like 100,000 times in a match, just one sentence of these 3, and they've given me so much. I've played and I've performed amazingly. Just one sentence that held me there. But then the life happens. Then you go out of the match. Then you go into school, or you have a job. You're a pro athlete. You're a semi-pro athlete. You're a pro athlete. You have this contract, that contract. You have parents. You have all grandparents. You have your agents. You have your managers. It's like you fall down. What is it possible that you maintain the zone level, that you maintain that high pitch level of balance, of all congruent things? Like, is that possible? And how does it look like?
Yeah, it is possible. And you touched on something also that I want to bring up, is that, you know, some athletes have no problem performing, training, doing what they need to do. It could be, and a lot of times it's that external environment. So if you're in school, maybe your stress is coming from, well, I'm not, it's going to be hard for me to get the amount of grades that I need in order to be able to continue to play or get that scholarship, because you can't just go and be a good athlete and, not do your schooling or finish your credits or whatever it is that you need in high school or college. And then whenever you move past that and you get out into the real world, maybe you have, like going back to imposter syndrome. Maybe you love playing, but you're not crazy about the spotlight, or you're not so good with dealing with other people and maybe, like you said, an agent or all of these other things. So there's a lot of different areas, especially when your life is really fully encompassed in the athletic world or the performance world, that could be triggering you, like we talked about earlier, that would keep you from performing at your best, even though when you get on the field or you get on in front of the table or whatever, you're just on and you can turn it on and you can go. What an effortless state of flow is what I take my clients through is identify what's your perfect life. What's your perfect life? If you're still in school, or let's say you're in college, a perfect life would be to be able to learn what I need to learn, study and not have this, this problem with studying or doing the work that needs to be done. So that way I can play and continue to advance forward. What does your perfect life look like? If it's with CEOs or business owners, it's them to be able to make the right decisions and to put the work in outside of work that helps propel their success forward. And so we create this perfect life of what it is that they want. And then we do a really quick, it's a single line question. It's 5 words. And what that does is that calls up the bug script in our subconscious mind. And all you have to do is write it down. And then we create an overriding, a statement to a positive one, a statement to overcome that. And then we go through processes of overriding those things. And when that happens, everything in life just begins to get easier. You wake up with less stress. You wake up excited to attack the day because you have the confidence, you have the know-how, you have the ability. And there's a balance there. And it's not all about, reading affirmations in the morning. I am the best. I am awesome. I am successful. I am all this. It goes even deeper than that into the really sub areas of the body. But when we've reached that flow, that effortless state of flow, not only, and this is what I help everybody to, not just athletes, but in every aspect, or not just in their performance, but in every aspect of their life, because we have health, we have wealth, we have love, we have relationships, financial, and then we also have energetic or spiritual, whatever you want to call it. And so when you address all of those 5 or 6 cores of your life, then if you're a single male athlete or female athlete, you're a better boyfriend or girlfriend or partner, right? You're able to find and seek the people that are going to support you in your circle, because everybody knows you're the equivalent of your 5 closest friends, and that's just because of essentially osmosis. If you're not in an environment that supports the high performance that you want, well, then, that's going to affect you. So you'll feel it in every aspect of your life. Whenever you do a little bit of daily consistent work to align your subconscious with your conscious, you really will. It's this very light feeling. It's this feeling of waking up and confident that no matter what comes in your way, you're going to be able to overcome it or attack it or work around it or whatever. And whenever you're able to do that, then your stress levels drastically decrease, and you end up doing the little things through the day. So maybe it is meditation, 5 or 10 minutes a day of meditation. Maybe it is breathing. Maybe it is some of these other practices that you can do to keep yourself centered and balanced, so that way the external world isn't triggering you so much. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did explain a lot, and I'm very sure that listeners are getting the gist of it. Let's just touch, maybe, because now you've tapped into some things. A lot of people are solving their issues with, for instance, they are a lot on video games, like a lot of athletes are, or they are using a lot of social media, like a lot of athletes are. Of course, a lot of attacks happen as well because of the betting and things on social media. Literally mind attacks and emotional attacks. So there are a lot of using these things. And then they say, oh, I need to put my phone away or my video game away. But that's actually just compensating for something. Nothing is wrong with these things. The why are you doing these things is important. The initial intention, why you go into, because you already are disconnected, disbalanced, and then you try to, because we are always just searching for this balance. Is that so?
Yeah.
We are there, we are living to be balanced, and balance is not, I like this thing because a lot of people think that balance means staying put. No, it's like bicycle, you need to ride it if you want to be in balance. Yeah. Life is about moving. It's not balance, no, I have it. That's the ego thinking and perception. Moving, creating balance, adapting, homeostasis, new form of balancing out, balancing in, balancing out, always doing here. This is this boxing of life. Can you add something to this? What I mentioned, the dopamine, video games, solving things that are not supposed to be actually touched, maybe? What do you add here?
Yeah, so my viewpoint on that is to control your inputs, right? Because a lot of times our inputs affect or even magnify our outputs. And so, like, I mean, I'll just come out and say it. Social media is created to create an addictive, to be addictive, for people to spend time on it and scroll. So that way, there's more eyeballs and you can have advertising and they can make money. That's really all it is. The challenge with that is that, there's so much, especially in the younger generation, there's so much negativity or people saying things because they're able to hide behind a phone or a computer or whatever it is. And so they can just kind of blast out anything that they want to say on social media. So we go to these platforms because, number one, it's addictive. We've become very used to having our phone everywhere with us, within arm's reach, pretty much 24/7, most of the people. And so it becomes this habit. And then you get this dopamine rush, like you mentioned, whenever you're scrolling through and maybe you made a post and people are liking it. And so you get this dopamine rush and you're like, oh, that's cool. But on the contrast, if somebody says something or something happens that's negative, then that is an input that doesn't make you feel good. And so it's not the best to be able to keep a balance, like you said, of moving forward. All of these things have their place. I use social media to network with people, to share content, to just like you do. But it has to have its place. And in order to put it in its place, it takes discipline. And in order to create discipline, it takes awareness. And in order to create awareness of what we're doing, it takes conscious effort to say, this is where we want to go. This is what we want to do. Now, what are the things and the inputs, right? What are we exposing ourselves that's either allowing or hindering us to get to there? And so whenever we take that really conscious approach of, this is the number one, this is my why, right? Everybody knows about their why. It has to be super strong, super powerful to get you through the hard times. But what it also is, it's also a filtration system. And so whenever you use it as a filtration system, you start looking at the things in your life. Okay, is this getting me closer to my why? Is this getting me closer to my why? And how about this? And so when you start being aware of all of these things that you're allowing yourself to do automatically or habitually, and you start using your why as a filtration system, you'll begin to automatically have these things in their place, in their time, maybe spending a lot less time on it. It's not about cutting it out or anything, maybe spending less time. And then whenever you build that confidence within you more and you start working on your subconscious, then these things that you come across on social media aren't going to bother you as much, because you won't be triggered, because your subconscious is, I am confident, I am smart, I am able to do these things. And when you believe that at a core level, then exposing yourself to a lot of the uncertainties that you can come across in social media don't trigger you and affect your life as much.
Yeah, great. Before we wrap up, we are men. Maybe I will cut this out, but I think we also need to touch period with ladies. There's a lot of menstrual cramps, a lot of this contraction. We cannot talk about it, but I'm sure that Men can relate when we fall with our nuts on the bicycle rod. We have pain. We are also human beings. We experience pain. So ladies, bear with us. We're not talking about having a period. We're talking about that this needs to be talked about. It's a lot of times taken away, this subject. It's like, don't touch it. You don't know. Well, if ladies don't talk about it, then how can we know? And it's a lot of cultural things as well here. Athletes, it's crazy what's going on. I was in one clubhouse room about this. Some big teams like football, soccer teams are beginning to implement the scheduling or the tracking of their period so that they know when they can push or how they are reflecting or how they are feeling, sensing. Does this, what you're doing, what you're using, the ISO Sync lab, also help ladies? Have you had this experience that they've had a better feeling in their bodies while having period? The balance.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So no, I'm not a woman, but I am married, have been for quite a while. And I work with my wife a lot. My wife actually was an athlete. She played college basketball, and all the way from, I think, early middle school, all the way through to college. And she went to college on a scholarship, basketball scholarship. And that competitive athlete or athleticism went through her whole life up until just recently, and Olympic lifting and all of those things. And so one of the things that I was able to help her with the brainwave entrainment specifically is balancing the brain waves. So because what happens is whenever whether we're male or female, it doesn't matter, or, whatever, if we don't know, or if we're not sure what we are, if we're human, right, we have the phenomenon, it's called the frequency following response. And essentially what that is that our brain tries to match whatever dominant frequency it recognizes in our environment. And this is an evolutionary thing. We needed this back when we were out in the woods and we were hunting and the weather was going crazy. We needed to be able to feel and adjust with these changes. So what happens now, and which is more elevated with women, is that whenever we're out in work and there's all these kinds of things going on, or we're working, or we're out in our environment, especially if we live in suburban or city areas, or if we have the radio going and the TV going, or a kid, baby crying, or someone screaming and yelling at us, or the radio's playing, our brain is trying to make sense of all of these different frequencies. And so what happens is our compartments become unbalanced. And this affects our hormones, this affects our neurotransmitters, and this affects everything in our brain due to the brain-body balance. And so that also taps us more into our sympathetic nervous system rather than our parasympathetic nervous system. So with brainwave entrainment, you can just listen anywhere between 8 to 15 minutes. It brings back, these tones help bring your all the different compartments of your brain back in alignment and establish a predominant frequency of vibration that's happening within your brain. And one of the most common is a high alpha, which is associated with the flow state. And so you have, at that point, you have dopamine release, you're feeling good, everything is feeling better, and you're more imbalanced. It goes down through your spinal cord and your nervous system, and you feel it throughout your whole body. Now, does this completely get rid of the cramps in the menstrual cycle? I can say with my wife's experience, no, but it does make it better. It makes it easier for her to be able to stay in a conscious state and to be able to be aware of what's going on and relax a little more. And she uses them to kind of put her to sleep, or if she needs time to go away, she'll listen to them. And one of the biggest things is because she's also a level 2 trauma supervisor in a hospital. So Monday through Friday, she's dealing with all kinds of crazy stress. After she leaves work, and this is really the reason why I created these specifically for her, because she used to have challenges with anxiety and depression due to such the high levels of stress that she has. She listens to these tones in her car on her way home. And that 30 to 45 minute commute on the way home helps balance her brain waves. She feels so much better. It's actually benefited our marriage, right? Because now we're not at each other's throat because we're both at high levels of fight or flight. And so it's been a really good thing. And this affects, like I said, everyone, male, female, human, in all different parts of the area. When our brain is imbalanced, our body and our mind are imbalanced, and we just feel and we just operate a lot better.
Great, amazing. So to wrap it up, to have a closure on this idea and what we've mentioned and tapped into everything, I see it as we are in the age now of finding yourself, your own voice. Yeah. I am inspired on inspiring athletes because they have a strong voice. People love to listen to athletes and not politician or business person, because athletes are raw. They have done everything in their energy, in their blood, and they were spitting blood to achieve something. So they are pristine and authentic. So this finding yourself, do you have any last words to really implement and imprint a new programming?
Yeah, you know, the biggest thing that I can say is that once we understand that we literally are like computers, if we don't like the programming, right, of what it is that we have been employing in our reality. And an easy way to say that, to see this, is look at the average of your life. Wherever you're at right now is a direct reflection of the baseline programming that is within your subconscious mind. And so if you're not 100% happy with everything and every level that's going on in your mind, then at some area, you can rewrite that programming, whatever it is. We are in total control of ourselves and our mind, and we can be. And it's a lot easier than some would like you to think it is. And so the message that I want to get out there is that we can take back controlling of ourself, of our body, because when we go in and we go in with the intent to affect our external reality, we're taking back control of not only our body and our mind, but we're taking back control of everything in our environment. And when we do that, it becomes really empowering. And that's why, you know, I call myself a personal empowerment coach, because giving people the tools, the knowledge, and the understanding of how to do that in a very simple way, you now then feel limitless, because you feel empowered and you begin to see the change in your world, no matter what it is that you do. And so that's the point that I really like to share.
Thank you. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you very much. All I have is thank you. So viewers can go to your page, isosynclabs.com. Do they get any code, or how do we connect them?
Yeah, so we have a 14-day free trial for all of the tones and everything. So you can go to isosynclabs.com. I'm the Matt Aponte on Instagram. I'm the founder of IsoSync. And you can also check out, if you want to learn more about me and my personal self, you can go to themattaponte.com. And my goal is just to really help people to be able to easily tap into their subconscious and to live a limitless life.
Thank you. All the best, Matt. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in. Follow me on Being the Genuine Athlete Instagram and Facebook page. Share, like, and comment, and be genuine all the way.